My name is Amit Goswami. I was born in India, grew up in Calcutta until I finished my degree, and was about age 26 when I moved to United States. And have not thought of settling anywhere ever since. Um, so that was part of me. The other part was that indeed I picked up many things as an Indian, which includes an accent which is so deep that I still haven't been able to share it. But much more than that, part of my character is Indian. But I have lived in America also for many, many, many years, so I also became partly Westerner. And perhaps this mixture of East and West has played a role in what I find I'm meant to do. Because what I do has a lot of meaning for me. And indeed, following it, like Joseph Campbell used to say, gives me bliss. So, in that sense, by being born in India, grown up and educated there, and then coming here and being nourished by the culture here, both has been very important for me. The physics training came from America, but even except for early spiritual training, I didn't get very much of spiritual training in India. My father was a guru, sort of. Guru is a spiritual teacher. So I, of course, had some basic understanding of spirituality, Indian style, from him. But I remember his love for me much more than the spiritual training he gave me. So his influence has been an influence, but probably it is more that he taught me to look at the world with more faith. The world is a loving place for me. I mean, it never has been a place where you have to live with mistrust and you have to live with struggle, and there is something about the world that is caring, and maybe that perhaps also has contributed to. I have never been a struggling individual in the world, me versus the world kind of thing. It has always been me part of the world. You started talking about walking our talk. Quantum physics is such a worldview. So first thing we do is to get us into right thinking, how to think about the world that does not separate me from it, instead makes it clear that I'm an integral part of it. But to be an integral part of it, first of all, I need to know if I am free to do so. Because if what traditional scientists, I call them materialists, if their worldview is correct and we are all made of matter and there is just material interactions, and then there is no way that our fancies about free will, etc., can be correct. But if that view is not right, and some recently was reaching a consensus, at least among some people, some scientists, that view is very narrow, leaves out our subjectivity and leaves out very important spiritual aspect of ourselves, and cannot resolve paradox of quantum measurement, cannot explain evolution totally, cannot explain many other data, anomalous data, that is pervading all over science. A special example is alternative healing traditions that are being rejuvenated all across the world. So if for a moment we entertain that there is some truth to the fact that a new paradigm can be built, and then firmly establish that paradigm on the idea of quantum physics, that has opened a beautiful visionary window for our being. Because in quantum physics, things are not determined things. Instead, they are possibilities to choose from, possibilities of consciousness to choose from. So in this view, consciousness is the ground of being, and in which material possibilities are possibilities for consciousness to choose from, and because they are possibilities of consciousness itself, it is not dualism. Consciousness is just choosing by recognizing one of its own facets. So in this way, dualism is avoided. Consciousness is introduced as a ground of being, making room for a resolution of the dichotomy that has existed between spirit and matter for millennia. If spirit is the basic ground of being, then and matter can be included within that spirit, then we can build an inclusive science that includes all of that we have developed under the aegis of materialism can be included, but in addition, opening is made for our free will and for spirituality and for many other experiences that we have. Because it is a fact that we don't have just material experiences which we sense, but we also experience our feelings, which is feelings of vital energies, not material energies, and thinking, which are thinking of meaning, which material cannot process, and intuit, which are stuff like love, beauty, justice, which is totally above and beyond what materialism can process and materialists can explain. So in this way, room is made for a new science, which can include everything about the human being that the material science has ignored so far, or denigrated as just epiphenomena, and so it's inconsequential. For example, recently books have come out which says why God don't go away. Well, why God don't go away is that we have a brain spot in midbrain, which if we excite it, then we get God experience. It's like a new G-spot of sorts. But that is such a narrow view. Obviously we have such a spot, nobody can deny it. But if God is just an experience, brain experience of exciting a middle spot of a spot in the midbrain, then God has no causal efficacy, and such a God is not useful for us. But it is a fact that prayers to the divine enables us to open up many avenues for ourselves, including creatively healing ourselves. And those people who have healed themselves thusly, they would never be convinced that God does not have any causal power, causal efficacy. And if God has causal efficacy and that God is reachable by us as a state of our own higher consciousness, then obviously we also have free will, if we could tap into that godliness. So quantum physics enables us to talk about this in a sensible way. How can we access our free will? How can we access real freedom? How can we go beyond ego? What is really the way to become creative and participate in the world rather than just be a conditioned member who just does what he or she is told to do and so forth. So it's not only a new worldview, it really comes alive. You started talking about walking our talk. It really comes alive when we begin to live what quantum physics is freeing us to live. But we still could keep it at just the intellectual level. I think that that's just a poor appreciation of quantum physics. Quantum physics becomes alive, as I said, only when we start living the principles. So I call it quantum activism. We become activistic in terms of not only living and transforming ourselves, but we also take social stands. We try to change our society to live according to the quantum capacities, quantum potential. And I was trained as a nuclear physicist and therefore staunch materialist beliefs. But in about 1973, and this came vividly at a conference that I attended at Asilomar, California, where I was listening to a lot of lectures. I myself gave a talk. I was not satisfied about it, and listening to other lectures only made me jealous because everybody was talking better than I was, and everybody was getting more attention than I was, and everybody talked better than I did. So in this way I suffered from jealousy all day, and at 1 a.m. in the morning I became aware that I have been having a heartburn, and unconsciously have been taking Tums and exhausted my entire packet of Tums, and still the heartburn wouldn't go away. So I was in this room at a party. I just go out in the terrace, and suddenly the ocean air from Monterey Bay hits me. And a thought comes unexpectedly. Why do I live this way? Why do I live this way? Is there any other way of living? So I become interested in alternative ways of doing physics. I quickly termed my old way of doing physics unhappy physics, and I began the search of finding happy physics. just incidentally, I found a quantum measurement problem, which is the problem of how quantum possibilities become actual events of our experience. The idea was already injected that John von Neumann did, that consciousness must have something to do with it, because when you look, these possibilities are always revealed as actual events. Waves of possibility become particles of actuality, so to speak. So that went on, the search went on for a while, leading to my hobnobbing with mystics, because I realized that consciousness cannot possibly be a brain phenomenon, because that gives only paradoxes, no solution. So I began to hobnob with mystics. Maybe they know about something about consciousness that we don't know. But still, that little belief that I had tucked away in the deepest of my unconscious, that everything must be made of matter, kept interfering. So one day, after a Krishnamurti talk that I attended at Ojai, California, I go to this friend's house in Ventura, and a mystic is there who is a friend of mine actually, but he was also invited. So he and I started dialogue, very, very, very engaging and intense dialogue, in which he started challenging me, my materialist assumptions. At some point he said that you have blinders on your eyes, there is nothing but God. Now, it was true that I have read that phrase many times before, and it had not made any mark on it, because I knew there is nothing but atoms. It's not God, but atoms are the basis of all being. But somehow this person was just so forceful, or whatever it is that maybe the earlier talk by Krishnamurti, my mind was soft. The mind went through an about turn. I still cannot explain what happened. But the recollection that I have is that mind was so soft, it became malleable to the idea that why not? And the conviction grew that we can build science. The usual wisdom is that you cannot do science if you base science on consciousness. David Bohm has talked about it, many other people have talked about it. Science has to be objective. It must not have subjective consciousness in it. But all of a sudden, it became clear to me that if consciousness is the ground of all being, including matter, then that problem can be solved, and science can be subjected to a metaphysics within consciousness, and still we can do science. And so after that experience, I became very engaged with how to develop such a science. And ever since I have been just doing that. So that is my happy physics. I discovered it by fluke. What can I tell you?